Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k Necrons. So in today's video we're going to be asking ourselves, can we win by playing fixed secondaries using the Leviathan deck? Now most people right now are playing the tactical missions, the tactical secondary cards. Now I want to ask that question, can we play fixed? So let's get into, if we can, and all the units that are available to us to score these points. Right, so let's begin with explaining the fixed secondaries. I suppose there are 7 in the deck, and you are going to be selecting the fixed objectives with pre-game, and there's going to be 2 of them. So you're going to be stuck with those 2 fixed secondaries for the entire game. You can't be changing them out. Now, in order to max score, you're going to need to you need to score them every single battle round, because you're going to be getting, on the majority of them, you're going to be getting 4 VP per card per battle round. So that's going to be a maximum of 20 per card. And if you've got 2 cards, that's 40 points, which maxes out your secondaries. Now, the only one I believe that has a difference to it is Bring It Down. That one is scored basically on how many wounds the model has got. But to be honest with you, in this video, we're not going to really go too deep into Bring It Down. So first of all, how do you identify which ones are fixed and which ones are tactical? Well, in the bottom left of the card, you'll see this little logo. It looks like a little bit of a SIM card for your phone or your cell phone. That indicates that it is a fixed secondary objective. So you're going to be selecting 2 of these if you are playing fixed. Now these are the list of, in fact, fixed secondaries, the 7 of them. So you've got Assassination, Behind Enemy Lines, Bring It Down, Cleanse, Deploy Teleport Homer, Engage on All Fronts, and Storm Hostile Objective. Now out of these 7 options, you can pre-plan for some of them. Some of them you're not so much going to pre-plan for. So let's eliminate a few right now. So Bring It Down. You can't really pre-plan for that, because you don't know what your opponent's going to bring, you don't know what your opponent's faction is. So therefore, there's absolutely 0 point in trying to bring it down, or take Bring It Down, or plan for Bring It Down, because your opponent may not have monsters or vehicles. So you can't take that one instantly, that's out the window. The same applies to Assassination, because if your opponent has got very few characters, then you're not going to max it out. So again, we need to eliminate that card from this process. We need to get rid of it. Another one that I'd probably get rid of would be Storm Hostile Objective. Now you can plan for Storm Hostile Objective, but it's quite tricky. It is very tricky to do, because you're relying on your opponent to have the objectives, and then you've got to keep taking them back. That's going to interact with your primary scoring potentially, and their primary scoring. So ideally you don't want them having the primary objectives, or the objectives in the game, to be scoring their primaries. So I would also, for this video, eliminate that too. So that leaves us with 4. We've got Behind Enemy Lines, Deploy Teleport Homer, Cleanse, and Engage on All Fronts. I think you could plan for those 4 objectives. So let's get into it. Let's start with the first one, in fact, Behind Enemy Lines. This is probably the most difficult out of the 4 that I've got left remaining here. You need to have 2 units behind enemy lines, or in your opponent's deployment zone. They need to wholly be within the deployment zone as well, not just partially. So you can't just be dipping a toe of a model in there. You've got to wholly have the unit in there. And if you've got the 2 units in, you score 4 victory points per battle round. This isn't going to include aircrafts, unfortunately, although we're not really using aircrafts at this moment in time. So that's the first one. That's the most difficult one. The second one, I don't know whether it's the second most difficult or not, but it's Deploy Teleport Homer. So this is effectively where, this time you can just dip your toe in your enemy deployment zone, because you don't need to wholly be within it. And if you do so, you're going to score, again, 4 victory points. And this time it's just 1. It's just 1 unit, but they're doing their little action. So they're not going to be able to shoot or charge, but just 1 unit doing it. And in fact, if you can't even get to the enemy deployment zone, you can also optionally do it in the center of the battlefield. Now you will only score 2 VP, not 4. But you've got a bit of a fail-safe to that card, if you like. So that's why that one is probably better than Behind Enemy Lines. Again, we're going to talk about all the units that are best for each of these cards in a moment. Cleanse, I think, is a pretty decent one for Necrons. You need to be doing a little action on 2 objectives in the no man's land, and for each one of the objectives you're going to score 2 VP. So if you do both of them, you score your 4 victory points. Now when you've got hordes of Necron warriors potentially, then you've got your lone operatives, maybe you've got Hexmark destroyers, the Canoptic reanimators. You've got lots of little units that could potentially do this stuff. So Cleanse should be fairly easy, especially if you kit out your warriors again with the Crypto Thralls, the Resurrection Orb, Ghost Darks. You know the coup by now. reanimator as well. If you can keep them up and running, two bricks of 20 potentially, and then have your Hexmark destroyers in and amongst them or slightly behind them, so that either they can't be charged or maybe they're more than 12 inches away with lone operative, then they're not going to be targeted as easily and they could be doing the action. So that's cleanse. And the last one is engage on all fronts, which is, I'd say it's probably one of the easier out of the four. This is a table quarters one. If you've got 3 quarters, you're going to be scoring 2 victory points, and if you've got all 4 quarters, you're going to be scoring the 4 victory points. Now you need to stay 3 inches away from another quarter, and you do need to wholly be within this quarter. So you do need 4 units effectively to score this. Each of your units is going to pretty much be on the battlefield to score it, so it should be fairly comfortable. Again, it's all about mainly the 2 quarters that are not in your deployment zone, the furthest quarters out. They're the ones that you're going to potentially struggle with, or you need to think a little bit more about how to score them. So let's go through some units now that would be good at scoring, well, any of these secondary objectives that are fixed. And we're going to explain, well, at the end of this section, we're going to sort of go through, again, these four secondaries, kind of work out which ones are the best to select. So the first unit I want to talk about today is the Flayed Ones. Now the Flayed Ones have the infiltrate ability, so therefore they can be deployed in the battlefield, in the no man's land, in the deployment phase before the game. Now this is good for, well, 3 of these 4 cards here. So first of all, engage on all fronts. You can already have them in a quarter that's not in your deployment area, especially if you go first, because then they're not going to potentially get targeted. You could get them behind terrain, so you could hide them, but engage on all fronts would be quite useful when you've got an infiltrate unit, and that unit alone will score 2 VP, well, assist with scoring your 2 VP or 4 VP, depending on how many quarters you've got. Cleanse is another option here. Again, they're going to go straight onto an objective in the no man's land. They can do cleanse. Again, if you go first, you can do it instantly, which is what you do need to do really, because if you don't score turn 1 any of your cards, you're not maxing out. It's as simple as that. You are not maxing out. You're going to drop 4 points, maybe 8 points. So cleanse, you can do that with Flayed Ones. Deploy Teleport Homer, you can score the 2 VP in the center of the battlefield. Now you're not going to get to the enemy deployment zone with Flayed Ones, not in turn 1. You can of course maybe turn 2 onwards if they're alive, but there's probably other units that could do this job better by turn 2. So now we're just talking about turn 1 specifically because of the infiltrate ability or core rule. So that's Flayed Ones. Next I want to talk about Tomb Blades. Tomb Blades have got the Scout 9-inch ability, so pre-game, just before the first battle round, they can move 9 inches. So you can move them forward 9 inches, and they've then got the 12-inch movement, and you could in fact advance with them if they've got the Tesla, what are they called now, the Tesla carbines? Twin Tesla carbines, that's the one. If they've got the twin Tesla carbines, they've got the assault keyword, so therefore they can actually advance and still be eligible to shoot, so therefore they can still do the action. If they don't, if they're taking the Gauss blaster weapons or the particle beamers, then you could actually use the Pro Scroll of Sunstorm to give them the assault keyword, so you could still advance with them. But yeah, you're going to be having the 9-inch scout move, a 12-inch standard move, potentially an advanced move, which on average is a 3 or a 4. You can get them quite up the battlefield very early on. So again, engage on all fronts, pretty much a done deal with Tomb Blades. Cleanse, you can get them to these objective markers and do the action, especially if they've got the Tesla. Deploy Teleport Homers, you could potentially reach there. You have to roll a very good advance roll, because most of the missions you're 24 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. So with the scout move, they're going to be moving 9 inches. You've then got their movement of 12 inches. That makes 21 inches. So normally the no man's land is 24 inches from the front of your deployment zone to the front of your opponent's deployment zone. So therefore you're going to be 3 inches short. So if you do that advanced move, you're going to need 3 inches. If you're on the line, I mean, you're cutting it really fine there. And if you've measured it slightly incorrect, you're going to miss out. Even if it's a few millimeters, you're going to miss out. Maybe there's some terrain features, obstacles, potentially that gets in the way. So you're going to really need to roll a 4 or more to be safe, and that's if you've got a straight line. But they could do it. They can get deployed teleport homers turn 1, not a problem. Well, I suppose it is a problem. You've got to roll for the advanced roll, I suppose. And behind enemy lines, this one is a little bit more tricky. You're going to need to get a really good advance roll. because you need to wholly be within. So if you do roll maybe a 5 or a 6 on the advanced roll and there's nothing in the way, it's a straight line from deployment zone to deployment zone, scout, move, advance, yeah, you can get them in. That one's a bit more riskier, but we're just talking about turn 1 here. Of course, there's other turns. There's turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. So they can very easily, in fact, get behind enemy lines in later rounds. It's not a problem. Not a problem. And that applies to deployed teleport homer as well, I suppose. Death Marks are next up we want to talk about. They've got the deep strike ability as well as the precision ability. So that's going to work with the following. So we've got engage on all fronts. You can deep strike into a quarter, not a problem. So that's going to assist you with your points, whether it's 2 VP or 4 VP. Hopefully you want 4 VP for the 4 quarters. Again, cleanse. I know these are getting repetitive now, but these are what we're talking about. The cleanse option, you can get onto an objective. Yes, you're going to forego your firing, but you could do a cleanse. Deploy teleport homer again. If you're doing this turn 3 potentially, maybe there's a gap in the backfields. There might be a better unit to do that, but they can still do it. Deploy teleport homer there, and that also applies to behind enemy lines, of course. That's just one unit though out of the 2. And assassination, because they've got the precision ability, they can do that too. Although I wouldn't personally pre-plan for assassination. Of course, if there's an opportunity, you see your opponent's list pre-game and they've got 8 characters, go ahead, go for assassination. If you believe that you can get it, go for it. But you're not going to be coming into the game with 30 death marks and 3 hex mark destroyers already with precision. You're not going to do that, are you? Because your opponent might not have any characters. So situational one there if you're going to select assassination, but the other ones definitely doable. Affinity destroyers, they've got deep strike and the tunneling horrors ability, which means they can pop in and out in your opponent's turn. The end of their turn they can pop out, and then in your next turn, reinforcement step, they're popping back in as a repositioned unit. So what can we do with them? Again, engage on all fronts. They're going to be popping in into any of the quarters that you've got a bit of a weak spot where you've not got as many units. They could be filling that role. Cleanse again, you could be popping onto those no man's land objectives where you're short of a unit. They can do that job. Deploy teleport homer, and behind enemy lines they can do that again. They can pop in, especially if you've got both deploy teleport homer and behind enemy lines, because you can kind of get 2 for 1 there. That's not bad. And storm hostile objective, I've thrown that in here. It's one of them units that can help do this because they can do that deep strike move and they can make a charge. I personally wouldn't do it with the Ophidians, but you can make that 9-inch charge move, maybe take over the objective with your OC, maybe get some other shots off on other units, take the objective. That's 4 VP. Hexmark destroyers are next. These are very similar to Death Marks, deep strike, precision. They've got the same sort of abilities, so they're doing virtually the same secondaries that Death Marks can do. Engage on all fronts, cleanse, deploy teleport homer, behind enemy lines, assassination because of precision. They're slightly better at it because it's a smaller area space that you're coming in from. When you've got 5 Death Marks, that's 5 bases that need to come in. Whereas 1 Hexmark destroyer, yes, it has a bigger base, but it's only 1 model, and he's got lone operative, so units need to be within 12 inches to fire at him. So that's going to pull your opponents back, and also maybe they don't want to come back. And if there's terrain, even better, they're going to have to come back and then make a charge move or something. So Hexmark destroyer is really useful for all sorts of objectives there, depending on which ones you select there. The Transcend Catan Shard, one of the auto includes in my opinion. It's got everything. Deep strike, it's got that trans-dimensional advance thingy-majiggy where you advance, then you virtually redeploy. And you've also got the Epic Challenge stratagem because it's a character. So you can go into a unit that's got a character within the unit, an attached unit with bodyguard unit, and Epic Challenge, just knock the crap out of the leader, and there you go, assassination. So yeah, we've already jumped the gun there. Engage on all fronts. You can do that very easy with the advance ability. I mean, it's moving, what is it, moving 7 inches, I think? They're moving 7 inches anyway, these Catan Shards. So it's doing a fair amount of work, but you may as well just use the advance move unless you want to charge, I suppose. Assassination, we just spoke about with the Epic Challenge stratagem. You can add Bring It Down here. This is one of the few units from this list that can do Bring It Down. Again, I wouldn't select Bring It Down if you're pre-planning fixed, because your opponent might not have any monsters or any vehicles. Maybe there's 1, maybe there's 2, so you're not going to max score if that's the case, but he can assist with that. Storm Hostile Objective, again, it's another unit that can do that. Cleanse, I wouldn't do cleanse with it personally. If you've got nothing left to do the cleanse move, let it do it. It has the assault ability attached to the weapon, which is, what is the weapon called again? It is the Seismic Assault. It's got the assault keyword. So therefore, even when it's advanced and done its super duper move, it's still eligible to shoot, so therefore it could do the cleanse action. Same with deploy teleport homers, in fact, it can aid in doing that action, and behind enemy lines, which it could aid with that too. 2 more left to go. These ones are not as commonly used, but the first one is the Canoptic Scarabs. Now there's no real ability or any reason. There's no like deep strike, there's no precision or anything like that. They're just cheap, 40 points for a unit of 3. So they can be assisting with engaging on front. They could be doing the cleanse move, because they're not going to be shooting or anything, are they? They could be sneaking around doing deploy teleport homers. If you just keep them in cover, keep them out of sight, they can sneak up the battlefield late game, because remember, you need to score in 5 turns. Maybe it's turn 4, turn 5. They could be sneaking in, doing this stuff, or behind enemy lines even. Maybe even strategic reserves, which in fact brings me to my next unit, which is a little bit of a curveball. Some of you guys may have not thought of this, some of you may have. Cryptothralls. Now Cryptothralls, at this moment, most people are sticking them in a unit with warriors and Lich Guard, and they're super tanky, super resilient with their 4+4 no pain save, aren't they? Now you do optionally have the option of taking them on their own. And the reason you would, well, first of all, they're cheap, they're 40 points, but second of all, their bases are tiny, they're really small models. And if you put them into strategic reserves, in turn 3, you can come onto the battlefield from any battlefield edge, even your opponent's deployment zone. So you can quite easily just sneak onto the battlefield within 6 inches of the battlefield edge, and if it's your opponent's edge, that could be deploy teleport homers, it could be engaging on fronts, it could be behind enemy lines. And they're sneaky little buggers, and if you've got, say, 2 units of them doing it on both sides, that's cheap. 40 points, 2 little bases that can't be seen. I mean, you can do the same thing with Canoptic Scarabs. They don't have a 4+4 no pain save, do they? Which one did I see the most out of all the units that we spoke about, all these scoring units? Now for me, I think I would remove behind enemy lines. I think that's the most difficult out of the 4. Because again, you need 2 units to do that, and it's not an easy place to get to, especially the early rounds. Turn 1, turn 2 even. Especially if you're playing against certain lists, certain factions, Astra Militarum, Tau, maybe Death Guard. Units that they're either slow or they don't want to move because they're shooting. I mean, even some Necron lists, they're not moving much, they're just a gun line with Doomsday Arcs and Canoptic Doomstalkers. So you're going to have a hard time getting in. So that 9-inch restriction is going to really restrict you. Deploy teleport homers and behind enemy lines in particular are going to be quite difficult. So I think I would lean towards cleanse and engage on all fronts. I think we're more equipped to deal with those objectives, especially if you're spamming Necron warriors and you're taking all the bells and whistles with them so they don't die. And you've got little units hidden within them, Hexmark Destroyers, Reanimators, maybe Illuminazares, maybe little Scarab units here and there that can be doing that little cleanse action, and everything will be engaging on all fronts. If, of course, the warriors will struggle, they'll struggle to engage on all fronts because they've got large units, unless you can really squeeze them into each quarter. That will be quite difficult. So that's kind of making me think, would deploy teleport homer be better than engage even? Because you just got to sneak 1 unit in. You know what, I might even change my mind. I'm going to take away engage for a moment and talk about cleanse with deploy teleport homer. Because you only need 1 single unit to do that. And you could just fire in 1 at a time, Tomb Blades, bang. 1 unit goes, turn 1, go for it. Deploy teleport homer, kamikaze them. If they die, they die. They've done the job. Turn 2, do the same thing. Turn 3, turn 4, and you've got strategic reserves as your secondary plans. You've even got the deep strike units as more secondary plans. You'll have a lot of units to be able to do this. In fact, let me go back through them all. I'm going to see which ones were able to do deploy teleport homer. So were the flayed ones able to do it? Not turn 1. Maybe the centre of the battlefield, but not really turn 1. The Tomb Blades 100%. They're probably the best unit to do it. Death Marks can deep strike in turn 2, turn 3. But other than that, the other turns they're not going to do it. Ophidian Destroyers can do it virtually every turn. So ideally you want to kind of miss out turn 2, turn 3 with other units if you've got deep strike units, because they've only got the limitation of turn 2, turn 3. So Ophidian destroyers can do it. Hexmark destroyers, very similar, turn 2, turn 3. Transcendent Catan Shard, yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one because they're quite expensive and I don't really want to spend an action on a Transcendent Catan, but if you've got nothing left, then you're going to have to go for it. Points are points. Points are points. The Scarabs can sneak up and do it, not a problem. Again, they can use strategic reserves, and the Crypt Scrolls. The Crypt Scrolls again. So I think that's actually probably the best combination. Deploy Teleport Homer, where you only need one unit to touch their toe in your enemy deployment zone, or the centre of the battlefield if you want to not max out. And Cleanse doing 2 actions on No Man's Land objectives. With the kind of list we got, I think they're doable. Now, am I saying the fixed objectives are the way to go? No. At this moment in time, tactical missions are definitely more superior, because not only is it a bit of a mixed bag, your opponent isn't going to know what you've got each turn, but you've also got the options of new orders. You also can burn them and then gain a CP, so you're actually gaining command points. And also you gain more points from them. You actually gain on all the, is it the fixed ones? The fixed ones gives you an additional point for doing them. So deploy Teleport Homers as an example. Instead of scoring 4 VP, you score 5 VP. And that's pretty much the same with all the objectives there. So at this moment in time, tactical is the better option. But if you did want to mix it up a bit, you can do fixed, and they're the 2 that I would choose. Deploy Teleport Homer and Cleanse. So guys, I hope you found this video informative. Maybe you're thinking about fixed, maybe not, but hopefully it's opened your mind a little bit more to these secondary objectives and how to score them. But yeah guys, make sure you are dropping a subscription on your exits, and as always, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one.